So I saw Wonder Woman yesterday, and it was actually pretty good. This is the fourth DC movie that I've seen in theaters, and after watching Suicide Squad, I swore that I was never going to see another in theaters because I didn't want to financially allow these movies to keep being made, even though I'm one person and it won't really make a difference if I see it or not see it. But after seeing the trailer and seeing all the reviews, me and a few friends decided to go see it. So overall, is this a fantastic movie? No. Is it a great movie? No. Is it a good movie? Yes. It's not terrible. But currently it has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, critic-wise, and the user score is 93. It's definitely not one of those movies. That's something you'd see for The Dark Knight or Logan. No, it definitely isn't in that sort of category. It was, I really hate to say it, but it was a painfully average movie. I don't really have any speculation of why it's getting such high reviews. Maybe it's because this is really the first good DC movie in this whole DC cinematic universe. There are plenty of good DC movies, like older ones, like the Dark Knight trilogy, the old Superman movies, the old Batman movies, at least a couple of them. So let's just get into why this movie, like what this movie did right and what this movie did wrong. Gal Gadot, or Gal Gadot, I'm not sure how to properly pronounce her name. She was good. She definitely fit the role of Wonder Woman. If you look at Wonder Woman back from the 70s, when Lynda Carter did it, she was basically just female Superman. She had that whole patriotic thing going on. With this, I like that they actually gave her depth. You see her origin, albeit not the most original origin story ever told, but it still is an origin story nonetheless. Even though I'm not a huge fan of superhero movies, and especially not origin stories, it's serviceable. At least hers. Chris Pines was good. I think I liked his character a little bit more because he had more memorable lines of dialogue. He, in certain scenarios, did more. Their chemistry together was definitely very organic. It wasn't really ham-fisted because there is a romance element and it doesn't seem like it's shoved in your face. It seems very natural. The fish out of water element, because she has to go through London and a world she's never been in, was good. It's something like you'd see in Thor, except this time around it's a bit funnier. It's a bit more subtle. She isn't just going around smashing things or doing anything dumb. Again, it's not very original. Once you see the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about. But there's one specific scene where she's walking around with her Wonder Woman sword called the God Killer, and it just seemed very distracting. Just sort of how she was walking around with it for a great deal without Chris Pines noticing, and when he finally does notice, he just freaks out like it's the first time she has it out, yet she was walking around with it the whole time. The supporting cast was average. Probably even below average. It's, again, nothing new. There's nothing really new with this movie, and that was kind of frustrating, was that a lot of people are saying that this is a very refreshing and very original and new superhero movie. It absolutely 100% isn't. But getting back on track, the supporting cast was average. Along with Chris Pines and Gal Gadot, there were three other characters. There was a Scotsman named Charlie, I think he was a Portuguese man named, what was his name? Samir, and a Native American, of all people, named Chief. Charlie was good, probably because it's the same actor, I'm blanking out his name, but the same guy who played Spud in Trainspotting. And he definitely was the most lively character. He was, out of all of them, probably the most developed, at least naturally. I enjoyed seeing him the most out of the other three. Samir was very meh with him because they wanted to make it, again, diverse. I felt like they just sort of checked the diversity box and then that's it. It felt very Rogue One-ish, where they just had somebody diverse, but they didn't really say or do a whole lot interesting. Not to say he was a bad character. He did have at least one funny scene. Because, again, I keep saying funny, but it's not a comedy, but there is elements of humor in the film. Chief I didn't really care about. He didn't really say or do much interesting or meaningful to the plot. The film is very visually uninspiring. What I mean by that is the color palette is fine. It's definitely better than something like Batman vs. Superman, where there's only one scene where I can think of in Batman vs. Superman where the color palette was good. And there definitely was a contrast between, forget Wonder Woman's home island worlds thing, forget the name of that, and then London, and then the Western Front. There definitely was a cool color palette between like the bright, vibrant greens and beiges of the beaches of Wonder Woman's home island compared to London, which was very gray and gritty. It didn't have the tonal change I thought it would. I thought it was going to be something sort of like V for Vendetta, where when it was very bright, it was very bright. When it was supposed to be gritty and dark, it was very gritty and dark, or something like American Beauty. The cinematography wasn't good. It just was not that great. It was very... It honestly almost felt like a typical comedy film, like Trainwreck or something that Judd Apatow would make. And that's the kind of director Patty Jenkins is. And that leads me to my next point. Patty Jenkins' direction wasn't great. She's a fine director. She's good at directing people. Ralph the Movie Maker said this before, but she's good at directing people. But because she's only made one other feature film, and I believe she's done some other shorts or whatever, she hasn't really done something to the scale. And I'll give her a little bit of slack for that. We can sort of scale it back, but at the same time, I understand that they wanted to hire a woman, which I can kind of respect because there isn't enough female directors in Hollywood, but there definitely are better ones to direct an action movie than Patty Jenkins. Catherine Bigelow is one that comes out the top of my head. And if need be, just to make it a better film, you could just really hire anybody that's good at directing action. I know he's busy, but James Cameron, somebody like him. Although he definitely wouldn't want to do something like this. Zack Snyder, even though I don't think he's a good director, he's definitely better at directing action. If you see in 300 or even parts of Batman vs. Superman, the action is good, really good in those movies. And I feel like Patty Jenkins could have taken some notes from that. It's again, her direction wasn't horrible. It's something that would get her nominated for a Razzie. It's just she's not a good action director, at least at this time. The visual effects aren't great. They look pretty dated by today's standards, and they're going to look even more dated because it relies heavily on CG, and the CG really isn't that good. When someone's standing in front of a green screen, it's clear as day that they're standing in front of a green screen. It seems like something, like Ralph the Movie Maker again said, it seems like something like in a shampoo commercial. Like those type of visual effects. They weren't good. They aren't anything very just fantastic. It's not something like Doctor Strange or Rogue One or Deepwater Horizon. Those movies have very good visual effects. This does not. The editing was very flat. Like I said before, it was a lot of, in the dialogue scenes, it was a lot of shot, reverse shot. Again, same with the direction. Yeah, and the action wasn't great. There was a lot of slow motion, which I'm not sure if they just tried to make that part of the style, but especially in the action scenes, there was a lot of slow-mo, and it was very, very distracting. It took me out of the movie quite a bit, and it was getting kind of annoying where every 3 or 4 seconds whenever Wonder Woman did something cool. There had to be a few seconds of slow-mo. The villains weren't great. There are 3 distinct villains throughout the film. I'm not going to say who all of them are or when they appear because that would go into spoiler territory. But they're kind of all over the place. One is kind of the Shyamalan type villain. One, they try to make a sympathetic villain, but that's just sort of their excuse because she's kind of a poorly written villain. She doesn't really do or say anything very inspiring or cool. Same with the main villain, who's this Nazi general. He wasn't fantastic, and same with the other villain at the end. It was almost comical at the end with the last villain. Once you see the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. So, after all that said, it's definitely the greatest. That's the wrong adjective there. It's the best DC movie in the DC Cinematic Universe. I just felt like it could have used more time to make it better. A lot of it seemed very, let's just check the box. It had a lot of cliches of other superhero movies. I do like how they made it World War I, because there are far too many of these types of movies set in World War II, and it's cool to see the second biggest war of all time finally portrayed, which is cool, because I don't know a whole lot about World War I. I do, but I know more about World War II. So it definitely makes me want to research into World War I and look more into it, because there was things that I saw in the film that I was completely wrong about when it comes to World War I. So overall, I give the film a 7 out of 10. Probably on my second viewing, it might go up or down. If anything, down, because there wasn't really a redeeming quality. I'm not urging to go see it again. It's nothing different than original like The Dark Knight or Logan, despite getting very similar reviews, which is in some ways frustrating. But yeah, it's definitely worth buying a ticket for, but it's not really worth buying it multiple times. It's not worth multiple screenings in a movie theater. It's definitely worth a couple of viewings, just not in a movie theater, if that makes any sense. Alright, that's pretty much it. See ya.